Hey everybody, I'm Becki Adams. Thank you for stopping by the Scrapbook and Cards Today YouTube channel. Today I have two Mother's Day cards to share with you using products from the stamp market. I will make sure and leave links to all of these products over in my blog post, and there will be a link to that blog post in the video description below. So I did all of my die cutting prior to turning the camera on, just to save a little bit of time, and then I also did some stitching with my sewing machine. So I have my card panel that I cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so just a regular A2 size card. And then I have all the bits and pieces that I cut out for this card. So I'm going to start with pieces from the book die, and that's the base of, I guess, the embellishment and the sentiment for this card is the die, the book die set. So I have those two pieces of cardstock, and also I should mention that I use the cardstock sampler, so all of the cardstock is from the stamp market as well. So I layered those two pieces of cardstock, and then I have that fun book texture that looks like the book pages that go along the top. And I adhered that with liquid glue to make sure that that stays in place, because there's lots of little pieces it's cut into, so it looks like pages. And then I'm working on the spine of the book next. So there are 4 pieces that make the spine of the book, and there's these 2 little pieces that are kind of a, I guess, slightly curved shape, and they go above and below that bigger piece that is where, like, that's where the title of the book would go on the spine. And then there's that really thin long piece that runs the length of or I guess the height of the book, that kind of divides the spine from the cover of the book. And I'm using a strong liquid glue on all of those little bits and pieces to make sure that they stay in place. So the pattern paper that I'm using is also from the stamp market, and it is the Little Love 6x8 paper pad, and that's where I got the front panel for my card from. So I used the mom layering die to cut the sentiment for this card, and it's just the word mom. And at first I thought about cutting the letters, the individual letters, out of the kind of coral color, and then I decided to reverse it and to make that coral color the outline and the back layer, and then the white layer to be I guess the top layer. And I love how that looks. I think that makes that sentiment just pop off of that book. So I have my book done and my sentiment done, and I have just one little piece left to add. I guess several little pieces that make one thing. And that is just a 3D flower. So all the pieces came using pattern paper and cardstock from the stamp market, and the 3D Perfect Posy dies. This is not, there's 2 posy dies. This is not the large one. This is it's just called 3D Perfect Posy. And I just cut out all the little bits and pieces, the leaves and the petals to the flower. I adhered them together, but I also bent them up slightly so that they would kind of pop off of the card a little bit, just a little bit, to give it a little more texture. And then I'm just playing with how I want all of my elements to fit together on the card. I'm using a tape runner from scrapbook.com to adhere everything together. And then these 3D foam squares are from Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L, and I'm just using those to make the sentiment of the card pop off the page or pop off the card a little more than the other elements. I want that sentiment to be the perfect thing. So I chose these elements with my mom in mind. My mom is a librarian and she absolutely loves reading. And so the book die was an absolute must for me. And I'm so excited to give this card to her on Mother's Day. I think that she will love it. So while I was making this card, I was chatting with my daughter and she said, Mom, do you know what would be so cool is if you made that book open? And I was like, oh, you're right. That would be so cool. And so I kind of thought about it and played with the die a little bit and figured out a way to make that book open. So what I did was took a piece of cardstock and folded it in half. And then I took some mint tape from scrapbook.com, but you can use any low tack tape. And then I put the left side of that book die and hung it off of the edge so that that side won't cut. And you want the fold to be inside of the die so that it won't cut. And then I just put that through my die cutting machine and I have a book that opens. So I use that little bit of mint tape to just close things up there. Again, I have my die cut, or my pieces for this card already die cut. I love to die cut ahead of time to make the video go a little bit more quickly. And then I put those little bits and pieces that I'm going to use for my project in a plastic envelope from scrapbook.com. I'll make sure and give have a link for those in my blog post as well, because I find myself using those all the time. So the cover of the book is made out of this pink, it's a soft pink plaid paper, the same one that I used on the previous card. And then I'm adhering, I cut out I used a lot of the same colors. And so the top of the book where you can see the pages, I use the same color of cardstock from the cardstock sampler pack and use some liquid glue to adhere those pages to the top of the book. And I had a hard time, I don't know why I didn't take note when I did this to begin with, but figuring out which way those little pieces went on the spine of the book. And again, I'm using just tape runner to adhere that one big piece, and then the other little pieces I'm using liquid adhesive to make sure that they stick down the way that they're supposed to and that they won't go anywhere when you either mail or take the card to a recipient. I think I'll give this card to my mother-in-law. She's also an avid reader, and I think that she will like this cute little book card. So this card does end up being slightly smaller than an A2 card, but it will still fit in an A2 envelope, no problem. So for the sentiment on this one, I just did the reverse of what I did on that last card. So the outline of the word mom, I cut out of white, and then the top layer that has the individual letters, I cut those out of that coral cardstock. And again, I'm just adhering that with liquid adhesive. And actually, let me back up. I forgot that I cut each of those letters out of a different color. So they still all coordinate together, and both cards look great together, but I did want to make things a little bit different on this one and make each of the three letters a different color. And I love that gives it just a little bit of interest, but the colors still tie in perfectly with the flower that I will be adhering, and with the base of the card as well. So I'm adhering the sentiment to this card with liquid adhesive, and just there along the top of the book. The left side of the mom die cut does cut off or go off the edge a little bit, but it doesn't affect how the card opens or anything. It still opens perfectly. It just overhangs a little bit. So if you mail this in if you mail it in an A2 envelope, you might want to cut a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 and just put that in the envelope so that it doesn't get crushed. I guess that one side get crushed in the mail. And then again, I'm just putting that one little posy flower there below the sentiment. I am so excited with how these two cards turned out. I'm a huge fan of the Stamp Market and their products. I always have such fun playing with them and have such great success, and they make the most beautiful cards. I appreciate you stopping by the Scrapbook and Cards Today YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, we would love to have you subscribe and to hit that bell notification so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thank you again for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon.